as mediating peace in Ethiopia.
Thank you very much. I would like you to look at the camera on the lady as you make the introduction so that the people can see you. Let's go to Abga on this camera, please.
Good afternoon all. My name's Samuel Nangpak Abashi. The brief I can say about myself is that I'm a retired Army officer and an international civil servant with the United Nations. I returned home in 2018.
Thank you. PDP?
Thank you. Good evening, Plateau.
Good evening, sir.
Caleb Mutfang is my name. I'm a lawyer by profession. I have been in politics for quite a while. Had the privilege to serve as chairman of Mangu local government. I've been a corporate lawyer, company secretary at Peugeot Automobile. I've also consulted for several government agencies and ministries. By the grace of God, I am the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party.
Thank you very much. PRP.
Comrade Luka Pampe Akubu is my name. Born 18th of June 1974 at the Mole General Hospital in Borno State, but I have most of my time spent on the plateau. Before this particular rest, I have been a teacher all my life, the secondary school level, tertiary school level. I've consulted also for groups, but not international, mostly in plateau. And I am, by the grace of God, the candidate of the People's Redemption Party for the position of Governor of Plateau State.
SDP, there is a power button on your mic. Push it and introduce yourself briefly, quickly.
Good afternoon, Plateau State. My name is James Shaka Yusufu. I am an Ngasman from Panchin. I was born and bred in the hills of Panchin in Plateau State. I'm a pharmacist by profession. I have a background in activism, from student unionism to youth activities on the Plateau State, up to workers' unionism in Plateau State. I worked in the civil service for a couple of years in Plateau State, and I crossed over to United Kingdom to study in Scotland, in Robert Gordon University, and moved over to England, where I'm now working as registered pharmacist in the healthcare sector. I have work experience in both the private and public sectors of both Nigeria and the United Kingdom. I'm well traveled. I am motivated to contest for the governorship of Plateau State based on my passion in patriotism to Plateau, and I'm moving from where I am to come and share the ideas I have with the people of Plateau State.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll start with APC. Of all the available positions for contest, why the governorship? Why not Senate? Why not House of Rep? Why not President? Why governorship? This question is applicable to all the contestants, so we'll take it. You have 1 minute and you're on the clock. Your time starts now. Your mic.
I've spent my life committed to people in the rural communities, in the cities, providing humanitarian services, starting with my village, where I've provided scholarships, where I've developed youths, providing skills, creating jobs at the lower level, in the midstream, providing services, being in government, being a director in university, and I've seen that in all these things, I can do best when I become the executive governor of the state. I can deploy what I've done before at the lower level into the state. And I know that I have experience in terms of security, in terms of the economy, because I work on so many economic ventures. And I feel the major problem of Plateau State is the economy and the security, and I have opportunity of deploying that across the state and improving the culture of life of people of Plateau State. That's why I want to contest for the governor of Plateau State.
Yeah.
Good afternoon once more. My name is Samuel Abashi. I like the question on why governor said. After my sojourn around the world, and actually locally, and I have enjoyed quite a lot from Plateau State. Free education up to university. I've only paid for masters in my life. And there come a time that you want to give back that thing to the society, what you have gained. And the only way you can do is seek the executive powers where you can make those things happen. And that were the key issues I considered. And looking around me, I see there are a lot of things that I can make them go better. Better than I have seen. So what else would be my contribution is to seek for the office. Thank you.
PDP.
Thank you, people of Plateau. I am the son of a peasant farmer who was privileged to be educated and become a successful lawyer by God's grace. And I have been afflicted by the pains that Plateau people are going through and the Nigerian nation is going through. And for me, therefore, it's not about ambition. I see this as a calling to serve our people and to remedy the situation in which we have found ourselves and to raise Plateau to the Committee of States where we can be proud that we are among the states to be reckoned with in Nigeria. I therefore see this as a calling by God, and He has prepared me adequately through practical exposure in governance to be able to come to this stage at this point. This is why I'm here.
PRP. Your mic, please. I think permanently leave your mics on. We'll control it.
Right.
Yes, just turn it on.
Why the governor and not any other position? For me, I believe that this is the fulcrum of service to my people. I understand that if you look at Plateau State over time, you will discover that the pedestrian for development has always been dwindling on account of the fact that if you gauged the governance space within Plateau, you would see that the development process has been very slow. So as a representative, in my own opinion, between yesterday and tomorrow, I offer myself to serve. And I believe that this will provide me the opportunity to be able to bring on board the kind of ideas I want to drive Plateau progressively in terms of providing the basics for our people. Now, if you also look at it clearly, you will also see that being a governor, rather than any other position, will provide a platform where you will have a readily provided opportunity to be able to use resources at your own disposal to address the myriads of problems confronting
Time
the
is
people
up.
as far as governance is concerned.
Thank you.
So this is the major motivation.
Please be watchful of your time. And I want you to be on the mic like I am on the mic so that the people watching can really hear you. Yes, it's adjustable. You can come close to it. Please go ahead, SDP.
Well, thank you, Tony, for that question. I think it's a very important question. Why governor and not any other office? I believe that based on the system that we have in Nigeria, the evolution of power is between the executive power, legislative, as well as judicial. And in the context of Nigeria, the executive power is the most consequential. And I've been asked this question before. And my answer to that is because I want to be impactful. And executive power is the only way you can be impactful in the current system of Nigeria. I am the son of Koki missionaries and Koki retired pastors. And I have been to the length and breadth of Plateau State, and I know the issues of Plateau State. And I do believe that ideas that I have, based on my experience and vast exposure, will help us achieve the right and desired results for our state. When we keep doing the same thing, we cannot see any change. So we have to try fresh ideas.
Time is up. Thank you. Now, Nentawe, unemployment. What is the unemployment rate in Plateau State? And to what rate will you reduce it in your first 4 years, and how? You have 3 minutes for this. I take the question again. What is the unemployment rate in Plateau? And what rate will you reduce it in your first 4 years, and how do you intend to do that?
For now, the figures are not yet stated for Plateau State. Rather, the figures are stated for the country in 2022, in 2021, which is about 35%. And what do I create jobs within the state? But what I would do is look at the lowest hanging fruit. The first lowest hanging fruit is agriculture. I intend to up and select seeds that we'll be using for Plateau State. I'm selecting potato as a main seed I want to use for to create job. I'll up the yield per hectare from 3 tons to 20 tons. I'll get at dumps. I'll utilize the existing infrastructure of the tissue culture lab from the African Development Bank by the state government. I will get youths to up that skill. And if I'm able to do that, I'll create jobs in their thousands, and people will also be able to farm 3 times in a year, and that will give us a leeway for creating jobs in the agricultural sector. Secondly, I will set aside 10% of the IGR of the state, so that we can create, so that youths, women, and people with disability will access this fund, so that they can set up their enterprises, create jobs within the state, and so that people of the state will be the creator of the job. Thirdly, we intend to also get power so that we can have the economic zone in Haipang, utilize the advantage that we have in Haipang, the power sector from Kurafol, the airport, and the inland container airport, so that we can have jobs created within the industrial park in Haipang when elected, because create that. And then thirdly also, there are opportunities of creating jobs by us setting up major revenue income sources that they in themselves, they will create jobs, like having trailer parks, having central motor parks, having utilizing opportunities that we have in the other sectors, so we can harvest wealth and create and drive that within the economy. With that, we target creating large jobs in the neighborhood of over 50,000 jobs in 4 years. And it's clearly stated in my own website. These are opportunities that are the lowest hanging fruit that I have in these sectors. Last but not the least is creating skills. There are many skills. Skills, I know is the future of the country now. So we intend to ensure that our education sector, we lower certificate as a means of education only, create skills, and get the skills itself to create job within the sector of the economy. These are things that we intend to do to create job within the country, within the state.
Thank you very much. I would need to stress this point, that all the debaters, please, this camera, so that you can have direct eye contact with the viewers watching. Over to you, Apga.
Yeah, thank you. I want to estimate the unemployment rate in Plateau at 7% of the total population. If Plateau is estimated to be about 3 million, I think it's 7. Job creation is the key thing. If you look at every segment of our society in the Plateau, you find out there are jobs lying down. But the initiative on what? First of all, the world is all turning into hands-on skills. We promote and train people to be able to occupy the skill sets in our society. We can be able to even export those skill sets by creating vocational training centers that will give the right skill sets. Secondly, the agricultural sector is another sector that largely could employ a lot of people. Go back to the old, when they were cooperative agricultural system. Push young, talented people, train into that segment. It cannot be exhausted. That is one segment. What about the local industry? Our training is going to focus on what we are going to achieve to the needs of the state. People will be employed in those segments based on the skill set we have provided to them. Because if you don't have the right skill set, how will you be employed? We are not always going to bank it only on pure knowledge. It's going to be a KSA issue where knowledge, skill, and attitude will be taken channel into the right. And we form an adequate database of the various skills of unemployed people and deploy them in the appropriate segment. We have quite industries that are surviving, though we have lost a lot. Things like the breweries, the steel rolling mill is not there anymore. Coca-Cola is gone. But I'm saying with the small industries that we have, which we have the mining, we have the academic sector, we will get our youth employed with the right skill set and have them there. That I can assure you, we will get the unemployment rate to the most minimum. Minimum in the sense that we provide the skills and we deploy them in the most appropriate place. And it has to be targeted to the needs of our immediate environment. And with that, I think we can achieve some success. Thank you.
PDP.
Thank you, sir. For me, the issue of job creation, reducing unemployment, first of all, we have to reckon with the fact that as at today, Plateau State is officially indebted to the tune of about 200 billion. And we've not been able to pay salaries of civil servants for some months now, which means that by 2023, we're in a very deep hole. That makes the necessity of creating wealth and creating jobs to become an imperative. Where do we start? We have to break it into 3 stages: the short term, the medium term, and the long term. In the short term, we can be able to improve on the skills that our youth have. Like my colleague stated, the statistics of unemployment vary from one agency to another. So we can't give you accurate statistics. But we live with our relations and we know that the situation is pretty bad. And so in the immediate, what we can do is to help our youth to improve their employability. Those who have gone to school, we can add skills to them so that they can find jobs even outside the state and they can be able to contribute to the GDP. We will also explore opportunities within the ICT sector where our youths are going to find opportunities that are lying. We're also going to look at the entertainment industry for the benefit of our youthful population. A critical demographic we must not forget is the women group. We must look at how we can enhance their capacity in the informal sector so that the little things they are doing to generate income for their families, they can do it better. And in the medium and long term, we can then look at a complete economic revolution in terms of looking at the industries that have failed and resuscitating them. When we've been able to restructure some of our debts, we've been able to create new avenues of wealth, then we can be able to make investments that can actually create the jobs that we need. This and a few others. In the power sector is a sector that is waiting to be opened up, but that will happen only in the long term. I therefore would not want to play politics with this because people's lives depend on this. That creating jobs is not going to be a tea party, but it's a job we must do. And we will be looking at public-private partnerships to enhance this possibility.
PRP.
Well, for me, really, Plateau youths are never short of skills. I can tell you for free. If you take the tech industry, you have very fantastic young men on the Plateau. You can imagine what an average Plateau youth can do with a keyboard in a studio, in a music studio. I can tell you also that we're already looking at that direction. If there is Netflix, why can't we have a Joxflix, for example? Why can't we package the numerous skills we have in the sports industry and sell them to where they will be able to generate more for the state? Why can't we package the producers? Why can't we package the musicians? And because we are talking about youth, these are areas that are very central to the youth in every ramifications that you can think about. Now we are looking at that particular dimension. How do we intend to do that? We open up a space for discussions. We understand that those particular sectors clearly and see how we can bring our youth to benefit in that direction. The second aspect we're actually looking at will have to be in creating the kind of environments that will attract employment for our youths as far as the issues are concerned. And in our manifesto, we have said that one of the things we are going to do is that in the first 100 days in office, we'll open up discussions with NESCO, which is in Kura Falls, to see how we can ensure that issues of power, issue of energy, issue of light is also being addressed so that the myriads of our youths that are involved in various trades that require electricity will be able to have gainful employment in that aspect. Now I give you another segment. What about the mining sector? If you go to company Zurak, which happened to be the base of one of the major mining benefits on the plateau, I can tell you that you will go there and see quite a number of youths that are working for other expatriates, whether the Chinese, whether the other solid mineral companies and so on and so forth. And we did a study in 2016 and discovered that there are 21 quarrying and mining companies on the plateau, but have not received the licensing from the National Cadastral Office. Why? As a government will be able to push these particular aspects. The many of them that are in Barkin Ladi, quite a number of them in Kura Falls, that are also doing mining, and we are losing lives of most of our youths. We will package this particular segment and ensure that it delivers in terms of the benefits for our youth. Then we are also looking at the aspect of industrialization. We will bring up the moribund industries on the plateau that have been neglected for a very long period of time. That can be a spinner in terms of job creation for our people. And finally, we're looking at the civil service. I can tell you that while I was in the public service and also as a comrade, former General Secretary of the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, while we were negotiating with government, we discovered that there are lacunas in aspects with regards to employment on the plateau. When last were employments done on the plateau? And I remember vividly that in 2016, the governor was quoted as saying that 1,832 ghost teachers were found on the plateau, paying salaries to those people that are non-existing.
Time
will solve that particular aspect.
Thank
and
you
give
very
jobs
much.
to our people.
SDP.
Thank you very much. I just want everybody to listen very carefully, Plateau. From what we will be saying, you would know who has really thought very deep and hard about the issues of Plateau State. I'll start with talking about my slogan, which is Arise for a United, Secure, and Prosperous Plateau. With the questions on unemployment, as quoted by my colleague, the national unemployment rate is about 35%. I believe that of Plateau will be worse than that. Even when you factor in the underemployed, I think it may shoot up to 50%. I think we all know what we're talking about. Those of us who are parents, those of us brothers and sisters know how the unemployment is within our system. And therefore, I have a two-point agenda. And the second agenda will address the issue of unemployment in Plateau State. It is called economic emancipation. And it is resting upon 4 pillars, which include social re-engineering. We need to change the mindset of our people, our youth and women especially, from a civil service mentality into that of a marketplace. The economy of Plateau State is worth over 100 billion naira. On a monthly basis, the capital injection into our economy is over 15 billion naira. But I can assure you that very few of our youth and women are participating in this 100 billion naira economy. Because everybody, you see a lot of youth going about with heavy files after 7 years of graduation looking for a job, government job or white-collar job. I intend to change the mindset of Plateau youth to look at the marketplace where the wealth creation lies right now. The second pillar is that of human capital development. The third pillar is economic empowerment. And the fourth pillar is jobs and wealth creation. If you look at what I mentioned earlier on, you will see that Arise for a united, secure, and prosperous Plateau. Prosperity will only come if we have unemployment dealt with in our own state. ARISE also stands for an acronym of the things that I intend to achieve. And part of them will address those issues, including solid minerals, which is an area we can tap in to create a lot of jobs, as well as create a lot of capital for the state government in form of IGR. We also have areas of what I call sustainable tourism. This is an area that is underdeveloped that we need to do a lot. That will create a lot of jobs for our people, as well as create income for the state government. We also have areas, a concept I call rural economy, whereby I intend to ensure that the economy in the rural setting is booming by creating the support the government can provide. Our people are agrarian in nature. We want to improve the agricultural economy. That will create jobs, and I will see people going back from jobs to their villages in order to participate in such an economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Agriculture. Many of the world's crop products are dictated by the climate of the regions where they are grown, and modern agriculture is becoming more industrialized and more specialized than ever. In Plateau, you can grow anything in Plateau and it will blossom. How do you intend to compete with the world when it comes to agribusiness? 2 minutes. How do you intend to compete with the world when it comes to agribusiness?
In simple terms, first is to look at crops that we have comparative advantage. And one of them is potato, vegetable, and avocado, and among others. These are crops that Plateau have very much comparative advantage. That's number one. Number two, all these crops have potential of export. And our own airport has been designated as a cargo airport. All we need to do is expand that airport by 5 meters, the runway by 5 meters, and then we can have it done. I will leverage on the National Assembly members that we have, get that port expanded, which will be critical to us. Secondly, I will need also to get those crops deployed so that both the sectors from the meat to the downstream and the upstream sector of the agriculture deploy. First, by providing seeds, improved seeds for the farmers. Improved seed can do magic for the farmers. The crops that are farming now, they are 6 or 12 generation seed. Therefore, our farmers are very hardworking, quite okay, but the yields are very poor. Improving seed alone will do a magic for them. Secondly, do a soil test and providing mechanization, providing fertilizer for them. That will help them also do very well in that sector. Thirdly, I will need to also get a bot that can actually crop and get these farmers so that they can buy the seed off them. And if that is done, because we learned from Kano what Kano has done in terms of marketing bot, if we do that, then we can throw away the middlemen so the farmers can have full benefit for their own farming. And then lastly, providing subsidy and providing funding for farmers at a lower level so they can take loans at at zero interest and have cooperative. That will help them have funding for agriculture, have markets.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Abga.
Thank you. Like you have rightly said, Tony, Plateau, anything can grow on the plateau. I have an exaggeration that I always say, if you dip your finger in the soil on the plateau, it will germinate. Out of the 26,000 square kilometer plateau is made of, about over 65% of it is arable land. I have to examine the current practice we do in agriculture. Is it the one that promotes a sustainable means? If you look at most of the agricultural segments in the society today in Plateau State are mostly successes. People embark on substantive farming. How do we make them go on a larger scale? The world is going organic. We have to give the most appropriate skills for people to look into organic. Any fruit can grow on the plateau. Exotic fruits can grow on the plateau. But the skills, the know-how to go about it to meet the international standards. Where we can send it has not done. That is where we will concentrate on. We'll concentrate on those market outside. Those for internal consumption, we can use the agricultural sector to control the local inflation. That is, if government can go back and introduce cooperative farming, where we can use mechanized system. In the kind of practice we do in agriculture today is what needs to be reviewed because we cannot meet the international standard. Those are areas. You need training, and bringing people up to date with the most appropriate intervention to meet up the challenges and the needs. And government will embark on that and provide the right resources.
Thank you. PDP.
Thank you, Tony. I grew up farming, so agriculture is a passion. Like I said, you have to break this into short, medium, and long terms. When we come into government by the grace of God, May 29, 2023, the farming season would have been in earnest. So there isn't too much you can do. But what we can do in the immediate is to improve on the farming practices that we'll find on ground so that we can improve harvest per acreage. And as we go along in that season, we'll make arrangements to harvest rainwater, so that we can be able to also deploy that rain during the dry season for dry season farming, thereby expanding the value chain of agriculture. We must move from rain-fed agriculture to covering the entire spectrum of the year in farming. And as we get along, we're going to bring in improved seedlings, we're going to bring in improved farming practices, and gradually as we tank up, we'll go mechanized. We'll deploy technology within the first 2 years of our existence as a government so that we'll be able to improve on the capacity of our farmers. And I am sure by the time we do that, a lot of our young people will be attracted to agriculture. And some of the issues of unemployment we are dealing with will be adequately addressed. So agriculture is about improvement in every phase of it, improvement with what you find on ground, access to credit facilities, improvement in farming inputs. This we're going to be working on as a government. And eventually, we're going to leverage on world best practices to ensure that technology is deployed to agriculture.
Thank you very much, PRP.
For us, we're actually looking at it beyond just crop production. But first and foremost, we're also looking at it within the dimension of providing the right environment for farmers to also thrive. I can tell you for free, if you take Plateau State and you take, for example, the tons of yam that are often produced at Bakinchiawa, but there are no roads to move these things to the place where they can adequately be sold for the benefit of these people, then you can understand that the problem is that of the intermediary logistic. Now, if you take the issue of beans or granules that are produced in places like Kanam, and you begin to ask yourself, those of them that also produce the vegetables that we're talking about, the Irish potato, what value do they get in terms of storage facilities? So we're going to look at the value chain in that direction. Ensure that they do not only get value for those particular crops, but that within the chain, where prices crash, they will have opportunities for storage. So we'll make provision for such facilities. We want to do that at a level of zones, at the level of the senatorial zones. If we can have a very large potato market within the central zone with adequate storage facility that these farmers can also reap, even where they are unable to sell it on a market day, they can still keep their goods to avoid the middlemen. That can also serve the purpose as far as that is concerned. Aquaculture is another aspect that we're looking at in terms of fish farming. The Panyan fish farm is a single man-made West African largest fish farm at present. But what is the state of that farm? We'll revisit it, rejuvenate it to provide fish requirements for our farmers who are into aquaculture in the true sense of the word. We'll look at it also in terms of cattle rearing, animal husbandry, provide the requisite facilities that will ensure that these people get veterinary services for their animals, and also provide incentives for them to ensure that they get value for it, thereby removing, the middlemen who often take off what the farmer toiled to produce at the end of the day. These are some of the things that we're looking at.
Thank you. SDP.
Thank you very much for that beautiful question. I think agriculture is an area where Plateau State has an enormous advantage compared to other places. And so how do I ramp up that to ensure that we can compete on the international level? I believe there are only two things that will be involved. The first thing is to ramp up and optimize production of agricultural practices of our people, and the second thing would be to create an environment where they can have access to the markets, both locally and internationally. I agree with my brother, Nintaro, who talked about agricultural extension. Going by the days when we have agricultural extension service workers going down to the rural settings and helping people in their agricultural practices. And therefore, as the governor of Plateau State, I think is one area I would like to concentrate on, to ensure that using the strength of the government, we can undertake the research that is required to understand where the advantage is for our people, and we send the extension workers to help our people, because we cannot jump into agricultural mechanization. Most of the products we get today out of Plateau State is all from subsistence farmers in our villages. And therefore, we have to start with them to encourage them. And part of my program, in what I call rural interconnectivity, is to ensure that we have roads that can connect the rural economies, which involves connecting where there is supply of a product and where there is demand for it. Interconnectivity is very important. And therefore, I would like to say that extension service is the first thing I would like to do. And the second thing is to create an environment where in each zone we have an agro-industrial setting with silos and warehousing, so that we can maximize on the crops of that zone. For instance, in the central zone, you have the main crops that come out of there would be the maize, the sweet potato, Irish potato, and tomato, and the rest of it. We need to create an industry around those things within that zone, so that they can create jobs as well as ramp up the production of our people. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Education. How many schools do we have? How many government schools do we have here in Plateau? What is the level or the standard of education in Plateau State? What do you want to do about that?
Now, we have both the private and private and public schools. It's estimated, we estimated that we have over 7,000 primary schools and the secondary schools, both private and public. And out of those primary schools and secondary schools, key to it is that we have infrastructure. First we have staffing deficit, we have infrastructural deficit, we have learning resources deficit. We don't have the database of the students in the secondary school and teachers also. So what can we do? Number one, we need to declare sort of emergency on education, do a need assessment, do a comprehensive assessment of our institutions. Number one. Number two, bring skills as a major driver, because last year over 1,000 multinational dropped certificates as requirement for employment in their places. So we'll target the top 9 skills of the future, bring them into technical secondary school, set up 3 technical secondary schools in the senatorial zone, 1% in the senatorial zone, set up 6 technical primary schools, 2% in the senatorial zone, so that they can prepare the kids for 9 years, so that after 9 years they are prepared for the job across the world. They become global citizens. That preparing Plateau State as global citizens. Number 2, get our own secondary schools, equip the laboratory, employ more teachers based on need assessment, train them and retrain them, provide learning resources, bring counterpart funding into our own faith-based schools, so that the faith-based school can participate in augmenting and clearing a deficit in education in our secondary schools and primary schools. If this is done, I'm sure we can improve the quality of education at secondary schools, because these are the fundamental things that we need to do in secondary schools and primary schools in Plateau State.
Apga.
Yes, I would say we have quite a large number of schools on the plateau, but my concentration would be more on the primary and secondary education, which are already falling apart. And it doesn't have to do with the beauty of the structure. It has to go with what goes in. We will review the curriculum, which have been there for decades, I know, not been reviewed. We are talking of quality education. Like when we look at the SDGs, number 4 of it talks of quality education. We're talking of quality education. How do we get quality education on the plateau? We will revisit and give the best training required for our teachers. And those are our resources. If not, we're going to have garbage in, garbage out. The training, we can revisit when we have the issue of unemployment. We can revisit what we used to have in those days, which is the pivotal college. We can pump in graduates there, give them induction training into training to impact the right knowledge. With our tertiary institution, we look at the polytechnics. The whole world is going about hands-on skills. But most of them will come up with a certificate based on knowledge. There have not been practical aspects. We tune the society and make the education to be more practical, where our architect will be able to get involved into hands-on, where our engineers will be engaged into hands-on. That is where the concentration. We've been having a lot of challenges on it, which are very clear. Inadequate funding. We have infrastructure. We have issues of governance. We have issue of administration. All these challenges, they have to carry out a true assessment, analysis, and then bring the right intervention to resolve and produce a quality education in the state.
Thank you. PDP.
Yes, thank you, Tony. The situation in the education sector has turned into a crisis of enormous proportions. As local government chairman, I had the privilege to be able to audit the public schools that we had. And I found that, first of all, we even had a manpower deficit. We had a trained manpower deficit. So the numbers are not adequate. Those who are trained, who are already qualified as teachers, are not adequately trained. Then we have infrastructure deficit. So it's a vicious cycle. We will be leveraging on the assets at the State Primary Education Board to be able to bring the changes required from that basic education level right through to the secondary level. And then we'll also be able to address the issues at the tertiary level using the institutions that are already in place like TED Fund. But let me say this, that the long-term secret to improving the quality of education has to be tied to wealth creation. If we do not create wealth, we cannot improve education to the level that we need to improve it, because it requires massive investments in terms of finance to be able to train manpower and to be able to train, to build adequate infrastructure to address the gaps that we have in the education sector. So again, we would look at this in phases, in the short term, in the long term, and in the medium term and long term. And so the immediate thing we can do in the short term is to improve the supervisory mechanism of what we find on ground, to ensure that at least we get value for money for what we find on ground. And as we scale it up, we get value ultimately.
Thank you. PRP.
Well, conservative numbers about number of secondary schools. Let's start from there. And let me take Just Not, for example. As of last count, in Just Not, you're talking about 94 secondary schools, and out of which 26 is public. The rest are private. Out of the 26, 3 of such are boarding, as it were. Now, but if you also expand that, you will be looking at something around 2,426 as far as these numbers are concerned. But having said that, The realities about our education on the plateau has always been this issue of lack of checks in terms of the establishment of some of these schools. You may recall that recently the State Ministry of Education, Secondary, has said that she has deregistered all private secondary school. Why? Because you have shady deals. There is a massive corruption in the establishment of our schools. And therefore, if these schools are built on corruption, you don't expect them to deliver anything to anybody. You go to some of these private schools and you find out that secondarians who hardly pass their NECO or WAEC are the teachers in those schools. They continue to collect high amount of money from parents, but they don't bring the quality teachers that are expected to deliver in terms of knowledge to these young people. The secondary schools are also dilapidated. The primary schools are also dilapidated. If you go to most of our communities, as a NECO monitor on the plateau, I have gone to virtually all the local governments during NECO monitoring, and I've seen the conditions of some of these schools. Even at national exams, if you see the way they write on blocks, in Tudunwada here, there are schools that you still find children still sitting on the ground. So the infrastructures, we are not going to play lip service, will improve and upscale the budget in terms of education. Our tertiary institutions are nothing better than glorified secondary schools. Because if you go to those places, they are not adequate for human beings to learn. So we'll look at the facilities around there, upscale these facilities, improve on funding, and ensure that they get functional knowledge at the end of the day.
Thank you. SDP.
Thank you very much. How do I improve on education in Plateau State? I think, first of all, I would like to address it in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, which says that, one of them says that to focus on achieving access to quality education. And therefore, the areas that we need to address in Plateau State is that of access to education itself and the quality of education itself. And what will I do in order to achieve these two goals? The first has to do with the quality. Education in Plateau State, and in fact, Nigeria at large, is at a very poor state. I am a product of the Nigerian educational system. I know what I got from primary and secondary education. I owe a lot of debt to my teachers. I think there are about 2 teachers amongst us. You should know that I respect you a lot, because anybody that is anybody in this world has a lot of debt to his teacher. But you see that teachers in our country and in our state are one of the most unattended to. Their emoluments or remunerations are poor, and therefore how can you attract the brightest and the best to that sector? So I would like to address that by ensuring that teachers are not just called as by vocation, but they are also attracted by what they get as in way of their salaries. So I will improve on that. And quality, we have to look at that, because we have a lot of schools where you go and you see there's very 2 blocks or very few qualified teachers in those places. And they churn out students year in, year out that can't read or can't write. So we need to look at that to ensure that instead of going for quantity, we go for the quality of those educational facilities that we have. I don't have enough time, but I think those are the things I would like to address.
Thank you for saving us 4 seconds from your time. Health. With the overall increase of illness like cancer, diabetes, and other non-communicable diseases on the plateau, access to quality health care for all is essential. In order to do this lies in using technological innovations and democratizing digital health for all. How do you intend to innovate an efficient and affordable access to effective health care in Plateau? How do you intend to innovate an efficient and affordable access to effective health care in Plateau?
Health has 5 pivots. Number 1 is leadership. That's governance. Number 2 is infrastructure. Number 3 is the deployment of technology and equipment. Number 5 is health insurance. Number 6 is providing financing of health. So what will I do? Number 1, I will deploy and finance health adequately, such that I'll bring Plus Chema, that's the health insurance scheme in the state, to cover both the private and the public sector, so that an average person from the rural community can have access to health subsidy. State government can provide subsidy for rural for rural people, so they can be integrated into the health scheme by having a subsidy from the government, and they provide just little money and they can have access to health. To work on the primary health care, because primary care is very fundamental in the rural communities, so that primary health care becomes functional, so that the poor person in the rural community can have access to quality health. 3, get private sector participation in the private, in the health sector, equipping some of the health facilities we have, and get partnership in governance in them, and then manpower added to it, and then you can have health distributed across the people in the state. 5, get these health facilities selected, health facilities, so they become best practices, global best practices, so that we can have also people come from other states can come for health tourism in the state. That will open the economic space in the state and ensure that we have health distributed across the state also. This, if we do with supervision and improving the governance of the health facilities, we're sure we can improve the quality of health in the state. That's what I would do to ensure that nobody's left behind in terms of health across the state.
Abga.
Yes, on the health sector, I will invest so much on generating awareness, dietary awareness, lifestyle awareness. Before I turn to the key issues, what are the key issues? We'll go back to our educational system. Do we have the quality training for our medical personnel? That would be our second investment, get quality personnel. And how do we reach out to the people in the rural system, in the rural sites with the quality education? We will invest on mobile medical. I've seen it done before, where the government can associate itself with some of, instead of taking yourself to India, we have a kind of a memorandum of understanding where we share with some of experts all over the world. And you have a visual communication where we can get how to resolve. What about mobile medical system that would take it? We have link with international institutions who are ready to give us assistance at no cost. We will concentrate on that one until we get the right skill set to try, because the system is at a rot stage that you cannot come out and think by the next 4 years or 8 years you will be able to resolve them. But you can make the initial moves by providing the right training, providing the right awareness, make solicitation for expertise, either through visual to help those situations, increase awareness on social insurance and how it could be linked to medical insurance. There need to be awareness on that so that we can subsidize. We'll look at where we can take care of the elderly from 60 years and subsidize their medical needs.
Thank you. Time is up. PDP.
Yes, thank you. For healthcare, I think a lot of discussions center on secondary healthcare, which deals mostly with elites. But the bulk of our people live in the rural areas, and therefore we must get the primary healthcare system working. As chairman in Mangu, I had 84 healthcare facilities, primary healthcare facilities, and were able to recruit 2 NYC doctors. And they brought to bear a lot of skills on that system. And that was an eye-opener that we can actually improve healthcare at that level with improvement in quality of manpower. Because healthcare, first of all, is about prevention, not about cure. And to be able to get the preventive side right, there must be a lot of education, a lot of information at that level. Now, these are things we can do in the immediate to liaise with the local governments and ensure that we improve on the quality of healthcare at that level. And we go to the secondary, and ultimately, as improved funding comes, we intend that at least we will have a referral hospital on the plateau that is world class. and that we will then be able to improve the capacity, make Plateau State a health tourism destination. Apart from that, of course, the issue of funding is critical, and we'll see what is on ground and how to deepen the issue of insurance and the healthcare, the contributory scheme, to ensure that more people come on board so that the cost of healthcare can be spread. And I believe that when we deal with manpower, we deal with regulatory functions, and we deal with infrastructure. Over a period of time, we'll be able to get the healthcare system working better by the grace of God.
Thank you very much. PRP?
Well, for us, really, if you are to take the statistics of the United States of America Office on Population, and you look at the estimate about the population that live in rural Africa, you are talking about 70% of rural the population that live in the rural area. And what that means for us is to be able to tackle the health challenges from the primary healthcare unit, as it were. In 2021, last year, I was privileged to consult for Plateau State Community and Social Development Agency. And we went around to see some of their interventions in terms of primary healthcare. And we discovered that with projects in 123 communities, they were able to execute 202 projects completed. But most of the things we observe at the rural area is a total neglect. I tell you that it's a total neglect because sometimes you have the structures for these health facilities, but you don't have the personnel in those places. In fact, in one of the places we went, in Kanke and Panshin, we discovered that those women that are in the community that are into trado medicine, those of them that are into traditional medicine are the ones that are using the hospital space to attend, to communities because the personnel are not there. The Plateau Specialist Hospital, how many doctors do we have there? How many personnel do we have there? And my very good friend, Kizito, and that might be seated here, asked him on a recent discussion about issues of rehabilitation and those involved in issues of psychiatry and drugs. The state government do not have any of such centers, apart from the one at the Jos University Teaching Hospital. So we'll pay attention to those particular areas, ensure that we upscale our primary healthcare delivery at the local level by recruiting more, by ensuring that we also improve on their welfare, because even where you recruit more doctors and you don't take care of their welfare needs, the brain drain is also playing itself out. Most of them are running to other countries. Imagine doctors that have been on strike. So we'll ensure that we address these issues to bring about that kind of health delivery.
Thank you.
Yes.
SDP.
Right. My Arising Action Plan, the I also stands for what I call integrated healthcare. What I mean by that is the ability of every Plateau citizen from whichever location to access healthcare that they need free of charge at the point of need. If you look at the healthcare system of Plateau State, most likely the whole of Nigeria, it is out of shape because you see people leave their villages with ailments and go straight to Youth or to Plateau Specialist Hospital or to Jankwano or to VOM, a Christian hospital. These hospitals are referral hospitals. The reason why it's happening that way is because the healthcare structure at the rural level is virtually non-existent. Therefore, for me, I'll need to address that healthcare issue in three aspects or headings. Facilities, first of all, then governance, and then manpower. We need to improve upon the facilities that we have, including provision of structures that are required, including provision of equipment that are required, like ambulances and operating tables and so on and so forth, and ensuring that the healthcare system is working, whereby you have qualified workers at the primary healthcare, qualified workers at the secondary healthcare and the tertiary healthcare levels, and the referral system works. With issues to governance, I do not believe in commercialized healthcare. We're trying to copy a lot of what is happening in America. Those who live there will tell you that that is not the right thing for Nigeria. You cannot try to make money out of healthcare because everybody gets sick. It needs to be socialized system. And therefore, I would like to bring a system whereby the government sets aside a certain amount of money to ensure that everybody can access healthcare at the point of need. And those who can't wait on the queues can now have access to the private hospitals that are concurrently being run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's look at insecurity. Insecurity has been a major challenge globally, but our approach of dealing with insecurity in Nigeria has been the major influence of our distress. Plateau State is not relieved from such trials. What do you propose?
Like I keep on saying, Plateau State has a vast land that is not covered by security. For example, I keep on giving example of Wasi has over 4,000 square kilometers, while Abia State has just 5,000 square kilometers. Just Wasi is almost Abia State. Abia has 40 police stations, Wasi has only 1 police station. We have caves, we have mountains that are difficult to navigate. We don't have technology. These will come with kilos, they come with technology, they come with night vision goggles, they come with lesser torchlight, they come with what will help them to capture our people. They also want, secondly, we thought we don't have funding for security. In summary, what will I do? First, I will set up security trust fund in the state where we can mop funding from all sources so that we can fund security. 2, I will have Minister of Interior so that we can have budget line for security in the state and we can deploy that appropriately. I will reinforce by recruiting hunters, recruiting copy from Amotekun and get appropriate arm for people that will arm them at the lower level so they can protect people from the villages. And thirdly, because the issue of land grabbing, I will ensure that rural communities, the land rural communities are given CFO, so that people at the rural community can have CFO, so that regardless of what happens in the rural communities, you can go to court and have access to your land. Thirdly, if we get the manpower, we get technology deployed, so that we can have balloons in the air, they can do live coverage and renaissance within communities. We can deploy drones, we can deploy huge technology, then we can transfer those information back to the communities and get control rooms. With that in place with long-range cameras, we can get to an extent termed the madness they have in the rural communities.
Okay, thank you very much. Abga?
Yes, the issue of security is very, very important because it creates the enabling environment for everything we've been talking about here today. I want to divide it into 2 segments: internal security and the banditry that we are experiencing at the moment. For internal security, we have experienced quite a lot on the plateau in terms of internal security, whether you call it sectarian violence or what. And the issue is that there have been several reports that have been made by the federal government and in the state. What were their findings? What were the recommendations? Was those findings ever published? We have to revisit it. Were they published? If they were not published, or if they made recommendations that were published, do we follow up the recommendations, monitor them and see how effective they are? In terms of banditry, we're talking of creating early warning system, an early warning system that we alert. But if you create using people, give them the right equipment that will be automated to the all security agency, and the response to emergency in terms of banditry is very important. We're going to provide the right training, the right resources for them to be responding effectively. But we will not, with all the sophisticated equipment that the Western society have, they still depend on human information to be able to tackle insecurity. That is why I'm recommending an early warning system. It could be inexpensive, but we could make it cheaper. Sending cell phones, they don't have to be smartphones, where people will become conscious, generate awareness, where people can become so conscious of any threats coming to the society. And that's the only way we can rescue security situation.
Thank you very much, PDP.
Straight away, I will tell you that security is very tangential to every aspect of life. And this requires practical experience. Because the security architecture in the country at the moment is not so much in the hands of the states because of the constitution. while we will be advocating for a constitutional reform that allows governors to become chief security officers indeed in their states, we'll also be trying to deal with the situations locally. We had a head start in Plateau State with Operation Rainbow, and which unfortunately has been allowed to fizzle out. When we come into government, we're going to resurrect Operation Rainbow. We're going to enhance its capacity for information gathering and to be able to deliver on those early warning systems. Then, of course, we are going to empower our communities to make sure that they defend themselves. We're going to empower our communities to make sure that they relate well with other neighboring communities so that they form a vanguard against any intrusion. And then we're going to be very strong on the rule of law. Criminality must be dealt with. We cannot afford people who come to perpetrate crimes in whatever guise, under whatever name. We'll ensure that they are arrested, they are prosecuted. And I am sure when we empower the communities, we empower the vigilante groups, we're going to discover that a lot of the insecurity issues will be dealt with at that level. And we are also going to be looking after the welfare of those already holding the being in charge of security. We'll make sure that we address their welfare needs so that they will be able to function adequately.
Thank you very much. PRP.
Well, for me, really, the opportunity I had in 2016 was to serve as a personal consultant to the Plateau State House of Assembly ad hoc committee on crisis in Plateau. And that opened my eyes to understand that there are two threats. There are internal threats and there are external threats. The internal threats are criminal elements that continue to perpetrate insecurity within the state. And then the external threats are those that come in, chase communities, take over their communities, grab their lands, and then either settle there or donate such lands to other categories of people of their own likes. So for us, a strategy that we are planning to be able to address this is what I call Plateau 54 operations. Now the 54 operations is taken to represent the 54 ethnic groups. All of us are involved in issues of security. And how do we intend to do this? We intend to ensure that we establish human intelligence in all these communities across the state, particularly the border communities, so that we can restrain threats that are coming from outside. And how do we intend to do this? We're looking at the neighborhood watch. We're looking at the vigilante groups that we're going to empower them. It is going to be Operation Do It Yourself. Because we have realized that even the conventional security system is not also delivering in terms of its mandate. With regards to internal threats, we intend to ensure that the state become uninhabitable to any criminal element in the state. And I believe that leadership that can be very proactive can be a leadership that will chase and deal with questions arising from insecurity. We're also looking at the use of technology. But our own kind of drones, perhaps different from others, is the fact that ours is going to have a carbon emission operational future in it. Where, of course, in cases of kidnapping or hostage taking, we can get all of them off and then take off whoever we want to take off and deal with the criminal element. We can also work in tandem with the Office of the National Security Officer because we realize that the issue of security drones are also within the purview of the federal government in the true sense of the word. So we will seek for assemblage of facilities from that office to ensure that we deploy this in terms of addressing some of these issues.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. SDP.
The first point of my two-point agenda is peace and security, and therefore is paramount. The primary function of government at every level, according to the Constitution of Nigeria, is the security and welfare of people and their properties. And therefore, any government that's failing in that aspect, to me, is a pointless government. And therefore, that is an issue that I'm going to concentrate on as the governor of Plateau State. Even if there's the only thing I will achieve as governor, I think I will be satisfied. When the citizens of Plateau State can rise up any time, 12, 11, 2 a.m., and begin to travel around Plateau State without any fear. The first thing I would like to do is to revisit what a previous government before this one had done, which is that of Operation Rainbow, as Barrister Caleb has said. This was a very effective tool that was in the hands of the government that was primed to ensure security is established in Plateau State. Unfortunately, it has been pushed aside. I think I will revive it. But one thing I'm going to do with the Operation Rainbow is to ensure that it is reorganized to go down to the rural levels, whereby we can bring in the elements of community policing. My idea is to ensure that the people whose security is at stake are involved in that security. And therefore, I would like to see citizens of every village, depending on the security threats, being absorbed, whether hunters or farmers, people who are residing in those places, being absorbed into that structure. They receive the training they require in surveillance, reconnaissance, and intelligence, and weaponry, so that they will be able to form the intelligence network of Plateau State, as so that we can have an early warning system from every village. If you see the way the structure of the security of Nigeria and Plateau State is right now, you have the police and DPOs situated within local government headquarters, and that's it. Nothing more. You hardly see any outpost anywhere. And that's why you see a lot of insecurity, things happening from our villages. We don't even know that they're there until people begin to cry and run helter-skelter. And therefore, for me, we need to take it down to the grassroots level using the Operation Rainbow that is subsistent right now in Plateau State.
Your time is up, and I think the room is getting warmed up, and you are really passionate about Plateau, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors, and I pray that God will select the person that will make Plateau a state to reckon with in the whole world over. Now, this last point is very, very important, and it's last because I would want us to really go into it, because basically all the things that you are saying, without proper funding, none is achievable. And that's why I want to talk about the economy. The 21st century economy is composed of a sequence of interactive features such as globalization, trade liberalization, information technology, communication revolution. How can this be actualized under your stewardship? Because everywhere in the world we are talking about the digital economy. And if we don't go in that direction, I am afraid for all your manifesto and your agendas. Without money, I don't know how you are going to fare in your activities as governors of Plateau State. So how can these be actualized under your stewardship? 3 minutes each.
First, like I keep on saying, we will set aside 10% of the state IGR, and we ensure that this money is used to open up the economy, open the economic space. Open the economic space here allows people that have good proposals to tender them to the consortium we're working with, so that they can use them to liberate and unleash the skills, the innovation of the youth on the plateau, and convert them, those skills, those enterprises, into money. If that is done, then we'll have more people participating in the, in different sectors, from the private sector to the public sector. You have the economy open up. Secondly, we ensure that also this same funding is enabled around agriculture, which is one of the lowest hanging fruit of Plateau, so that we have the economic sector of from the downstream to midstream to the upstream, the whole entire value chain is developed. And then thirdly is to ensure that most of the moribund companies that are on the plateau are liberalized by getting them engaged through the private sector. We get co-investors, get into them, and we get them. We learn from what Brazil did. Brazil sold some of the companies at €0, because they know that when these companies are sold and investment comes in, then government can leverage the taxes and they can make more money from it. And jobs are created for the people at downstream, so that profit of what government will make will not be driving force, but job creation and the turnover from the economy with the driving force of what we do there. Then thirdly, what we intend to do also is to ensure that we open up the global sector, global investment to the country, partnership, foreign direct investment, so that we get that sector properly done by creating where you can have the ease of doing business is ensured in the state. We have one-stop shop for you to register business and do business on the plateau. This will create an easy means of doing business. We'll make land free. We'll give tax holidays for facts that are coming in. And if we do that, they will add people in the tax net of the state. So the public, some of the informal sector will integrate them into the tax net, land automation, security in the state, so that if you do land automation, bring even the Just Master Plan in, so that there's house numbering, and street numbering, naming. That will bring e-commerce back to Plateau State, and e-commerce will be the driving force of any economy in the 21st century. All these things we will do to create jobs, to create economy, and then add to the tax net of the state, so that more fund will be in the state and more jobs are created. That will be a win-win for both the people and the government.
Time's up. Abga.
Yes, particularly we will concentrate on God's gift to the state, which is the solid mineral. Today in the world, oil is going out of fashion. The world is looking at solid minerals, and God has given us that wealth. But how do we utilize it? Despite the fact that the 1979 Constitution, Section 40, subsection 3, was very particular that the wealth on the ground belongs to the federal government. However, it gives corporate institutions to seek for short lease on mining. In Plateau State, we are going to incorporate a government parastatal where we will involve into mining, process it in the state, and mining today generates a lot of money, a lot of elements. Just one sector that we have in the state would virtually give us all the funding to create jobs, the funding to fund adequate funding for education, give people the right skills that they can go into the, the ICT, get quality institutions, all that requires that funding. I just speak on that one segment alone of mining. Mining is a great aspect to generate funds. Then let's look at the local industry. It will create also funding for us to be able to provide loans to people that will create small scale industries to promote entrepreneurship, industrialization, which we're almost losing out on the plateau. Funding from mining can do it. Look at all other segments. We've gone and touched on the agriculture sector. We need funding. We need to utilize the land that we have. We promote the hybrids, go into forestation, planting trees all over. All these things need resources. I'm just picking one segment of it, which we will concentrate on, and we will get enough funding to be able to fund both industries, education, agriculture, get the right intervention, because I believe that what we have as mining will create the industry locally, we'll process it locally, we'll mine it, and thereby it will create jobs. Apart from creating jobs, it will give us the skills to man these things over time. And with that, you can be sure that funding will be enough. I have very confidence because the issue of oil is going out of the day. The world is looking at solid minerals. Thank you.
PDP.
Thank you again, Tony. The plateau economy of the 21st century and beyond is going to be anchored on agriculture.
Your mic, please, sir.
Sorry.
Your mic is not on.
It's on. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I said the plateau economy of the 21st century and beyond is going to be anchored on agriculture, tourism, mining, entertainment, ICT, and of course sport. These are areas we'll look at. And let me say this, that by 2025,
I'd like to get your mic fixed.
That means my time?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Please, let's give him his time again.
Okay.
We had a technical hit, so let's give
Thank
him his
you.
time back.
I said the economy of the 21st century for Plateau will be anchored on agriculture, tourism, mining, entertainment, ICT, and sports development and general commerce. Now, let me say this, that by 2023, there is no money anywhere to set aside. We have to create the money because we have to make money to pay the over 200 able to look at the regulatory framework that ensures that people get their returns on their investments when they do bring in their investments. And so we are going to ensure that we get the environment properly organized. And of course, in the long term, technology will come in enhancing business environment. But in 2023, the low-lying fruits that we're going to tap on will be public-private partnerships. We're going to liaise with the local governments, and together with the state government, we're going to build functional international markets across the state with proper, with very favorable terms and beneficial to the people of Plateau State. We're going to ensure that these markets are not just for buying and selling. We're going to incorporate things like storage and things like that. Of course, we're going to look at how to revive the ASTC program and enhance its capacity, particularly on the marketing side. Now, when we're able to do this and we organize the informal sector so that people can come within the tax net and the IGR of government can improve, we're going to look at to stop the haphazard developments on the plateau, where people are just building houses anyhow. We're going to ensure that they are properly planned and that people get title documents to their lands. And this will enhance the IGR that can be replowed into expanding the frontiers of the economy. And this, I can assure you, is going to be anchored so much on the youth population.
Thank you very much. PRP.
Mr. Tony, make no mistakes, and that is what I believe in. If they tell you that it's lack of funds that has kept Plateau at where it is today, never believe that. If I do believe that, I'm going to drop my aspiration for governor of Plateau State today. I don't believe that it is money that make government. It is government that make money. What do I mean by that? I'm looking at transparency, accountability in managing the little resources. If I ask you how much is enough to develop a state, it's relative. Nothing is enough to develop until and unless you put in the aspect of accountability and transparency in managing the little resources that you have at your disposal. Before you can even think of expanding the horizon in looking at alternative sources of revenue for our people. I will give you an example. I don't need $1 billion to demolish a market and still go back and ask for 9.4 billion to build a market. That is lack of transparency. I cannot borrow 1 billion naira in the name of building an international stadium in Jos, and I still find people going into those bushes with grasses at the entrance of the stadium to go and clap their hands and tell me that it is lack of funds that has stagnated that particular development. So what we believe in is to be able to bring a paradigm shift in governance. We want to bring transparency into governance. We want to bring back godliness in governance. We want to bring back commitment to little resources in governance. Just about 1 month ago, I did a presentation to all the 17 local government chairmen about issues associated with tapping available resources and putting it into rural development through a book I have written on local government financial management. These are areas that we believe Going further, if we bring in transparency in the system, if we bring in accountability in the system, if we tell people that we can do justice with the little resources at our disposal, I can tell you for free that people will be ready to pay taxes. And so we can upscale our tax system through a moral suasion. How are we going to do that? When people see you bringing dividends of democracy to them, you don't even need to tell them to pay money. How much is being got from building material market? But it's one of the most sorry roads in Jos today. How much is being got from Mango market? Go and see the facilities there and ask yourself fundamentally, would people continue to pay resources when they know, in form of tax, when they know that they are not getting value for it? So I tell you, the basics for us is to be able to address the issue from the foundation. And the foundation for us, we believe, is that you cannot destroy a tree by merely trimming the leaves. You have to remove it from the root. And what is the root for us? Accountability in governance, transparency in governance, reducing the cost of governance, ensuring that people do not lavish the little resources at their disposal. When we do that, we are going to cut down on that. And we're also looking at the 23 ministries that we have, where some of them are bloated and are not bringing value to us. We are going to see possibilities of reducing some of this particular bureaucracy as far as the issues are concerned.
Thank you very much for your time, SDP.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. The Plateau State government, as far as I can remember, has been running a deficit budget. This year is another deficit budget financed by over 80 billion naira that is borrowed. This is the budget we're running. If you take a look at the budget of the state right now, you will see that the income that is financing that budget, about 80% of it is coming from non-productive sectors. Less than 20% is coming from a productive sector. And therefore, we spend over 66% of our budgetary allocation on recurrent expenditure. What that means is we're just maintaining status quo. We're not moving anywhere. The rest of it, about 30 to 24%, 24 to 30%, is about recurrent expenditure. This shows you where the problem is in Plateau State. Every government comes, they're just concentrating on spending and spending and spending, never thinking about generating income. And therefore, for me as a governor of Plateau State, I will start by addressing the budgetary system in Plateau State, by ensuring that we have a budget that is a productive budget, not a consuming budget, whereby money is spent in areas that are productive, that can bring in employment, that can ramp up the economy, and therefore bring in more money to the government. So there are two areas I think I would like to concentrate. First is that of internet-generated revenue, and secondly, on how to attract foreign direct investments into Plateau State. And the first place to deal with that is that of security, because as we all know, nobody will come to an area where there's risk. Insecurity is a huge risk for any investor, even local investors. And therefore, we have to take care of that. The second aspect of it, if we're able to take care of security or insecurity in Plateau State, is to now look at the areas of the economy that are productive and ensure that we spend money. If we are borrowing money to finance our budget, that money should go in to replicate itself so that we can have more money coming into the area, into the state. And those areas include in my Arising Action Plan, like agriculture. As I've said earlier on, if we ramp up the activities in agriculture, it is going to bring prosperity, and that will come along with it revenue to the state government. The second has to do with what I call sustainable tourism. When people come in and they spend their money in Plateau State and enjoy the good weather and the hospitality of people of Plateau State, they spend their money here, and that brings in money into our state, into hotels, into restaurants, and into all the facilities that are within that sector. That will bring in wealth within the companies and the individuals in business, and they will pay taxes. That will ramp up our generation of income. And secondly, also, I would like to concentrate on solid minerals. Solid minerals is a very neglected sector in the economy of Plateau State, and indeed Nigeria. I would like to see that I pay attention to solid minerals, thereby attracting foreign direct investments, and attracting also government investment, and ramping up employment, as well as bringing in revenue to the state government. That way we can finance the state.
Thank you very much, SDP. We've tested leadership from APC, we've tested from PDP here in the Plateau. And we know most of us are in touch with the street, and We know the word on the street concerning your aspirations. We have talked about unemployment, we've talked about agriculture, we've talked about education, we've talked about the healthcare system, we've talked about insecurity, and we have looked at how we are going to bring back or make the economy of Plateau blossom, and I've heard all your plans. I am more interested in your strategy now. What did the other people do that they didn't get it right that you are doing? Because I am not a believer in criticizing leadership that are whether on seat or past. I am more interested in who is coming and what he is coming to do different. So this is the point now. The plans that you have, we have heard them in the debates. And then we want to know the strategy that you have for executing all of these wonderful points that you have for our dear state Plateau. So this time around, I would like to start with Abga. This time around, let me know the strategy that you have for making all the plans that you have listed. The strategy that you have. We know that we have bad roads. That is not our concern. How do you want to fix it? We know that we have bad educational system. It's not news anymore. What do you want to do? We don't care about who spoiled the road. We want to know how you want to fix it. We want to know how you want to fix the healthcare system and all of that. So I would start with Abga. You have just a minute to do that. Okay, 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay, we are on the clock. Let's do 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Tony. Not good at speaking too fast, but I'll try my best. First of all, I want to talk about the strategy for enabling environment. Without the right enabling environment, we're going nowhere. And that's the issue of security. The strategy is that we cannot implement anything on tourism and earn money on tourism. When I go to Google Plateau State, and the first thing I see is crisis, who was killed yesterday and tomorrow. No, we invest in the enabling environment. The strategy will be security, first of all. Secondly, the priority will be education. There are enough institutions on the plateau. What I will do immediately is to conduct a review, a total assessment. Analyze those assessments. Look at where the issues are and intervene, because we are talking of quality education. If you don't train a good doctor, you don't need a healthcare system, because you'll be sending somebody rather to a mortuary. So we are talking of quality education. We extend it to the skill set. We don't all have to go and have the knowledge. Our institutions like the Polytechnic provide engineering, but it comes up at the knowledge with a certificate. What about the hand skills? Now we get civil engineers, we get a lot of access. We still bring out expatriates to build our roads. When do we start bringing our own skills from our institutions to invest them into this? In terms of business and entrepreneurship, I've already spoken about the mining sector. It's a sector that I'm also very passionate. Agriculture is going to take time. We need training. We need foreign experts to train our people to improve on organic food, to meet up the national market and control the local inflation rate.
Your strategy would be training?
Training.
Okay.
Training.
So I'll go to SDP. What would be your strategy?
Thank you, Tony, for that question. My agenda of Arise for United, Secure and Prosperous Plateau, and the two-point agenda of peace and security and economic emancipation is powered by a strategy that is two-pronged. The first one is what I call ideas meritocracy. It's based on a philosopher's idea whereby we entrench brutal transparency within the system, whereby we ensure that anybody can say anything to anybody. We live in a culture whereby the respect for elders or respect for statutes stops us from reaping the benefits of people who we consider to be lesser than us. Anybody can have a good idea, and therefore this is something I'm going to do differently. I'm going to be open. I'm going to put in a system of where we have round pegs in round holes, irrespective of your tribe or religion. We're going to put a system where there is community participation in everything we're going to do. The government has to go down to the people that are supposed to be governed. They need to have their ideas infused into the governance of the state. And therefore, every major idea that we're going to do, I'm going to ensure, as a result of ideas meritocracy, that the communities that are being served are involved in both the synthesis and the actualization of those ideas. The second aspect of my strategy is what I call Shabshaka Bashaka. I don't know if you know what that means. Shabshaka, no shaking. This is an idea that is based on myself as the leader and my attributes and my virtues as a leader. This is going to ensure that the success of my administration depends on my integrity, on my transparency, my patriotism, my compassion for Plateau State. Because that is the only time you can see things are moving, when you have a leader that have the qualities that are required in a leader.
Your time
Thank
is
you very
up.
much.
Your time is up. I would like to listen to Honorable Caleb Mutfwa.
Thank you, Tori. I hope my microphone is working this time.
Perfectly.
I think the first guarantee for success in governance is the leader. And what I intend to bring to Plateau people is leadership. Leadership that has a pedigree. Leadership that can summon the political will to change our narrative. Very critical. Secondly, as a key to that strategy, is that you must also build a qualitative team. Build a qualitative team. I believe that I will look for people who have better ideas than I do. I will not feel inferior having people who can think better than me. I'd love to bring them on board. People who love Plateau, are passionate about Plateau. Thirdly, we will build processes. We'll build institutions. It's not going to be haphazard. We're going to make sure that processes are transparent. We've talked about ease of doing business. All the things we have said we will do are a given. But we must build transparent processes that even international organizations can leverage on to be able to partner with us. And then lastly, we must build the requisite networks. We can't do it alone. It's a global village. We therefore should be able to bring on board people who know that they can trust us. They can do business with us. And I think that when we have all these things on ground, we'll be able to attract the necessary investments that will actualize our dreams and our vision so that Plateau can be better.
All right, let's listen to Nentawe.
First and foremost, like I said, is to give room for ease of doing business in Plateau. So like I said, one-stop shop for doing business on the Plateau, access to land, access to regulatory systems. If we get that right, so the ease of doing business is effective on the Plateau, then we can attract investment into the state. Secondly, our appoint is an advisor on a chief economic and policy advisor to the government. He will enforce all government policies, all economic policies in the state, and he will be on contract 1 year renewable, so that he's employed and recruited based on KPIs. That will ensure that all government policies are enforced. He will have the mandate of monitoring the commissioners, money people under me, and they can be fired based on the KPIs he will give them. With that, I will ensure that the civil service become effective and policies and the time of doing business with Plateau is reduced. Thirdly, I will bring in PPP, private-public partnership, so that government will have less to do with businesses, and funding can be attracted using public-private partnership. That will reduce government investment in institutions. That will ensure that most funding that are coming to the state are from the private sector. I also increase and hire people that will increase direct foreign investment and counterpart funding in the state. So the budget of the state will be reduced to an extent so that most of this funding coming in will augment what government would have done from the budget in the state. I will also do a change management training for our people, and then most importantly, the hiring of people that work with me. I ensure that I go anywhere, even non-indigenous of the state, even people who are not from Plateau State, who are better and best that I can get across the world, I'll hire and bring them in and ensure that I improve the quality of governance in the state.
Thank you very much. Comrade Luca Pampe.
For me, really, strategies are actions. I will take the action immediately. I will not wait for 6 months before I make my appointments. We just hit the ground running immediately. And I can tell you that we are going to strengthen our institutions in the state. We are not mindful of the fact that we have some of the best brains in our institutions. But driving the process through an active leadership will give them a leeway to be able to bring on board their ingenuity in terms of their contribution to governance. I'm not omnipresent, therefore I will not be everywhere at the same time. I'm going to have people with the capacity and the capability to carry out such functions. And wherefore I find you, not performing, as far as the job prescription is concerned, I will not hesitate to take action in the favor of Plateau people. And that is the kind of government that we want to run. A government that will not have excuses for poor performance. A government that will not create room, for people to loot resources, and no actions, no deterrents, no penalties are taken. And this is the kind, in as much as it's not going to be very dictatorial, we'll ensure that we are present at every point of delivery in terms of resources. We're not going to make promises and fail to deliver on the promises. Our KPIs are going to be timeline bound. They are going to be on timeline. If we say we are going to do this between this period of time to that, we will ensure that we stick to that until we are able to achieve it. If we are unable to do that and we do a review, Plateau people will be able to know why we are doing such review and why we are not meeting up with that. So that will bring about the point of transparency in the true sense of it. In the area of people who are expected to deliver in the security sector, we'll embark on training. Training is key to ensure that they also acquire the basics to carry out responsibilities in that direction. So for me, really, any strategy can be more than putting action into governance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am so glad that you found time to be here. We would draw the curtains here, but believe me, when campaigns are launched fully, we are going to have a full-fledged debate where we can go in and talk about the issues that you may not have heard on the streets. Yes, we are going to talk about the issues. We have certain policies that will not allow us to say certain things right now because believe me, NBC is watching this debate and they are waiting for us to go the other direction from what we've promised. So we are grateful. I'm grateful that you found time to be here. Thank you very much, Dr. Nentawe Yilwada of APC, for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Tony.
wish you
Thank
the
you,
best in
Plateau.
your endeavors. Thank you very much, retired Officer Samuel N. Abache, for coming. I am grateful that you found time to be here. Thank you very much, Honorable Caleb Mutfwang of PDP. May God see you through in your endeavors. Thank you very much, Comrade Luca Pampe, for coming. Thank you very much, Mr. James, Pharmacist James Sharp Shaka. Did I get it right? Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for watching the Plateau governorship debate on Equa Television Africa. We have votes coming in, but the result will be announced on Saturday at 6 p.m. So keep voting, keep sharing. This event is still on Facebook, is still on YouTube, is on satellite. We'll keep repeating it on Equa Television Africa. On Saturday by 6 p.m. we are going to share the links to the vote platform so that you can see how people were able to perform during the debate. However, the votes online would not say that that's the governor of Plateau State. It's just how they have done. I wish I have that power, but I don't, so we'll pick it up from there. Thank you very much for coming in studio, participants. Thank you very much wherever you are. Thank you for watching Equa Television Africa. I'll draw the curtains here and I'll say good night. On behalf of every staff of Equa Television, we are grateful that you made it. Thank you. See you when we see you next time. Good night.